It's often been said that God sent his Son into the world to take on our human flesh, not to teach us how to be God, but how to be human beings. How to be human beings who live with our mortality, our weaknesses, our vulnerability, and everything that is involved with the conditional aspects of our lives, where we also begin to see that we cannot save ourselves. Because the real temptation from the very beginning of creation, as we saw in the Genesis account, is humanity's temptation to give in to that temptation that we can save ourselves. That's what the eating of the fruit of the forbidden tree is about. That Adam and Eve could be godlike, could be those who save themselves. And so we see here in this account from the Gospel of Luke, how all of that really is shown so very powerfully. For it begins, we see here, by announcing those who are in power, who have possessions, who have different positions. Caesar Augustus, the great emperor, Quirinius, Herod, all of those who in some way have control of the situation, to the point where in fact Mary and Joseph have to move from their home in Nazareth to come to Bethlehem to be counted. Great Caesar looks upon people as his cattle, as his possessions, as those who are to be accounted. They also are a family that seems to have nothing in possession. But we also see that about the shepherds as well. Here they're living, as we're told, in the darkness of the night, where there is great jeopardy and risk of wolves and bandits that can prey upon them and steal their sheep. There are also those who are outcasts. They have to live outside of the city in the field. They're really not looked upon with any kind of respect. And to be honest, they don't smell too good. The Holy Father pointed this out when he told that pastors that they needed to have the smell of the sheep on them. That came from an experience that he had when he was a superior of a community in Argentina as a Jesuit. As they had farm animals there, he noticed that one of the newborn lambs was being rejected by his mother. And so he told one of the young seminarians that he had to care for that sheep, take the sheep to his room and feed it and care for it, because otherwise it wouldn't survive. But as that seminarian did that and then would come into the refectory or the chapel, everybody knew he was on his way because they could smell him as he walked into the room. So the shepherds also are those who represent that human weakness, the frailty, the incompleteness of life, the ways in which they live in jeopardy and also are not counted as important. So too the Holy Family. They're those who not only are counted like sheep or like cattle by the great Caesar, but they also come to a place where there is no room in the inn. They're homeless people. They can only wrap their newborn child in rags, in swaddling clothes. And we know later that Herod will pursue them because he wants to do away with this newborn king. So both the shepherds and the Holy Family call us to remember that God has taken on our flesh to help us understand what it means to be human and to accept our humanity, to accept our vulnerability, our limitations, and yes, our mortality. Because when we do so, we open ourselves up to the realization that God does come to save us. He not only comes to save us, but he makes us his own. But when we try to pursue our own salvation on our own terms of possessions and positions and power, we find ourselves always fretting about things, always anxious and worrying. It seems that no matter how much money we have or power we have, it's never enough because we still wonder if we can save ourselves. So as we come here on Christmas Day, it is an opportunity to accept the freedom of God's salvation for us, to put aside the anxiety and the worry and also the temptation to save ourselves, and to realize that we identify with these shepherds. We identify with the Holy Family. We're indeed very poor. We are dependent on God. But that should in no way discourage us, but free us, liberate us, always to turn to God in our need and our limitations, in our sickness, in moments of want, and realize that God has come to save us in a very determinate way. And notice that it is not just good news for the people who hear this on the first Christmas night. No, the heavens themselves ring with the praise of the glory of God for what takes place. Yes, Caesar may want to count Mary and Joseph and the people who are poor, but God tells each one of them and to each one of us that we count in His eyes. And so today, as we look at this wonderful scene of the Christ child in the manger, wrapped in swaddling clothes, and the angels telling the shepherds to go to Bethlehem to see this great thing, we too should come to Bethlehem. We too should be willing to stand at the crib and look upon this newborn child and see ourselves, and remember that God has come into the world, taking on our human flesh, not to teach us how to be God, but how to be human beings.